So in the 5 weeks since I posted anything, I've also had a fair number of thoughts about the LD topic. The first 2 or 3 are pretty quick. I'm just going to mention them quickly, and then I'm going to go to the next couple where I have a little bit of depth of elaboration. The first one is, I think you ought to check out the ideas and the writings of John Wooden. John Wooden was the basketball coach at UCLA back in the 1960s, and the record that he put together as the coach of that program is nothing short of astonishing. If you think about March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament, the college basketball championship for the very largest intercollegiate league, and how many teams try so very hard just to go far in that tournament, and how much of a point of pride it is just to get to the Final Four. What Coach Wooden was able to do with the UCLA basketball team was he was able to win it 7 times in 10 years, including twice back-to-back going undefeated from the first game of the season all the way through the championship game, 2 times in a row. Now, what he's done is he's written a number of books, and he has a fairly simple set of suggestions, a fairly simple set of ideas for how you can excel, and he uses that to explain why he was so successful as a coach, and he calls it his pyramid of success. So what I think you ought to do is, I think you ought to look up the Pyramid of Success and look up a little bit about his biography. He's got a little book, they call it the Blue Book, and I believe it's called Life and Observations on and Off the Court. And it's got just a lot of little couple-page long essays. I think of it as actually good bathroom reading, because you get through these things pretty quickly. And the Pyramid of Success, it's interesting because the very top, the capstone of the Pyramid of Success is competitive success. But then, one of the bricks that's in the very bottom row is cooperation, which means you can make the argument either way. Is competitive success something that has to be built on a foundation that includes cooperation, or is cooperation one of the basics, and is competitive success the pinnacle? So, have a look at what John Wooden has to say about how you get to success, and I think you're going to find some really good materials that will help you on both sides of the topic. Now, a second thing that I have squirreled away that I wanted to share, this is a quote that I've used in my public speaking class a few times as an impromptu topic, and it just hit me that it has some application, that for someone it could be the epigram that starts off your speech on one side or the other. And the quote is by John D. Rockefeller, and the quote is, "A friendship founded on business is better than a business founded on friendship." And the idea here is that relationships that come out of fundamentally competitive settings are bound to be built on respect. But then when you try to go and compete based on a relationship that began as something that's friendly or social or doesn't have a very sharply defined point to it, you're on weaker ground. So I think that's something that you could work in as an illustration, or you could use maybe just to start off your speech. And the third thing that I have just kind of jotted down as one of my quick ideas is, I know there's still a lot of people out there who think that this year is going to be all about balanced negatives. And I'm sure if it's this much of a problem that you've debated balanced negatives a lot of the time, and you have sort of the standard strategies for what you do when the negative tries to, have it both ways. One of the arguments that I thought would be kind of interesting would be to appeal to the judge that built into debate, and I've talked about similar ideas, but this one's a little different. Built into debate is the idea of a forced choice, because what we do is we deal with controversies, and that is just part of the structure of debate. And the way that you can illustrate this to the judge is to ask the judge, how unhappy would the tab room be with you if you wrote down that both of us had some pretty good arguments, and that both of us had some pretty good moments as far as speaking skills, and you just couldn't decide, so you wanted to congratulate both of us on the debating we did? The tab room would come and they would hunt you down and they would skin you, because they would want you to choose. Did the affirmative win or did the negative win? It is part of the beginning assumptions of this activity that there's a choice to be made, and that you don't co-opt the opposing side and you don't opt out and cop out of making a decision just because the making of a decision may be something that requires a commitment. Well, of course it requires a commitment. And making a decision may be difficult. Well, of course it's difficult. And making a decision may require forfeiting whatever value there is on the other side. Well, that's called making a choice. And I think if you really kind of think it through, you can pitch to judges that that's not what debate is about. And really, I'm sure that I'm not the first person to suggest to you that you can do this, that this is the obvious strategy to take in response to balanced negatives, but these are a couple of the illustrations that you can use in trying to get at that and trying to make that sound appealing.